Hi, my name is Carla Cairós, as you said, and I founded Radices Consulting 5 years ago, which is a consultancy specialized in sustainability. And today I'm going to talk a few bits about what sustainability is, and probably more helpful what it isn't, and also about my path as an entrepreneur and as a mentor to other entrepreneurs. So let me start to what sustainability is. And according to the dictionary, is avoidance of the depletion of the natural resources in order to maintain ecological balance. And what that is, well, it's an explanation, but what does it mean for business and for global businesses? And well, it means getting profits, obtaining profits without having a negative impact in the planet. And why does my definition starts by the profits, unlike those dictionary definitions? Because it's about business. And I think the reason for our current situation, and while all the talks on the late 90s and early 2000s about the planet failed, is because they presented sustainability as a sacrifice. This is a sacrifice business must make from the planet, and that doesn't resonate with the business community, especially with women in business who have it more difficult than anyone. They may want to be sustainable, but not at any price. And that's why our approach is gaining profit while being sustainable. And it's entirely possible, and sometimes even more profitable than before. And reconcile the economy and the planet is what we do and how we do it. But I'm going to talk about a bit about what sustainability isn't. And it isn't a separate journey. It isn't an annex you add to your yearly report for stakeholders to read. It has to be intrinsic. It's not sustainable actions to take. It's to be sustainable across your company. And that, I know, for entrepreneurs sounds very difficult, and sometimes for global companies too, but this is actually quite simple. And unless you take an intrinsic approach towards sustainability, it won't work and it won't be effective. And another thing that sustainability isn't is attack. We see it all across like a label, sustainable, and then it's not really sustainable, and that's greenwashing, and that's not very effective. So let me talk a bit about my journey and how I got there, and my message to women out there who wish to start up, or who are starting up, or who have a company and don't feel it's working as they should, is be flexible, be able to adapt, have an idea, of course, but what needs to be core to your companies are the values, not the ideas. And I myself started in Brussels and in the policy circles of the European Union, which was very interesting, and there is a lot of work to be done there in sustainability. And then somewhere across the journey, I got a call from a bank asking me whether I would help with a sustainability index. And as a consequence of that, there were many private clients, single family offices, global companies. And of course, it was completely different what I am doing today and what the company is doing today, what we were doing 3 years ago, or what we were doing when we began. It's completely different, but that's what you need to learn. You need to be able to adapt. All business people, but particularly women. Why? Because it's going to be more difficult to get hired. It's going to be more difficult to convince clients to stay with you. And the way of helping that circumstances, which is unavoidable, is to be more flexible, to be more adaptable, to be more ready. And in my journey as an entrepreneur, I faced many obstacles, which is why a few years on, I accepted a request by an organization to become a mentor. And I have since become a mentor through various organizations, and even people who reach out directly to me on LinkedIn, like, Carla, will you have 10 minutes to give me your thoughts about this topic? I'm really open to that, and I would like to call all business women out there to do the same, to lift each other up. And that's very important, and that's very core to what I'm doing. And of course, mentorship is crucial. Having a network, it has been said throughout the day many times, it's very important as well. But to those of you who are hesitating, whether I should start up or not, or whether it's at the right time, do it. Don't hesitate. You will find your network. You will find the support you need. You will have to work hard. That's, of course, a reality. But do not let the cons outweigh the pros. And entrepreneurship is a necessity. Earlier this week in Davos, Henrietta Ford from UNICEF was saying it, that entrepreneurship is a necessity, and the younger generations are going to need to start up, not because they want and not because they have this spirit, but because they will have to find their own way and create their own job when they cannot find one. Okay, and I said, in addition to what Mrs. Ford said earlier this week, let's help them. Those of us who have already started up, who have gone through that path, let's give them a hand and lift them so they can continue this entrepreneurship ecosystem.
I just want to ask you that if someone today want to transform the career from a working professional to a self-employed, is it that what do and do nots they should keep in their head?
Well, the first thing would be, don't hesitate. I'm always approached by these young entrepreneurs. They are usually like finishing their masters or else, and they get these really big offers from corporate, and I have been there. And they say, okay, maybe I will go to name your big company for a few years, and then it would be better. And I would say, if you want to do it, you are an entrepreneur at heart. So put your mind where your heart is, and delaying it won't help, and the sooner the better. If you have your mindset to it, that would be my first tool, and my second tool would be look for support. There are many organizations and many individuals who are very willing to help each other out, and don't try to do it alone. It's true that you can do it, and I did it, and you can be very successful, but you don't need to go through that alone. And that would be my biggest one.
That's amazing. And how important is that your product should be very innovative and you should bring some value, and as you said, sustainability. So how important these characteristics to bring in a business?
Yeah, it's crucial. For me, when I started, it was designing strategies. And of course, sustainability was core to those strategies because that's who my generation are. We don't think of sustainability as a separate. It's like everything we do has to be sustainable. But then I realized it's not the same for other generations because they didn't grow up with this concept. So I had to rebrand myself and as a sustainability strategy consultant. Because what I thought was simply a strategy with sustainability incorporated, it was actually bringing companies sustainable. And I have had the opportunity to work on some very great projects from a very large group of companies that they did not interact with each other. And I brought them to interact with each other, to smaller companies or single family offices going through generational change, which is very important. And the important thing is you have your ideas, but do not try to impose those ideas. See the market, feel the market, and react to the market. And of course, make it in a way everyone understands, not just your generation, because odds are, if you're young, business leaders are not your age in the majority, but make them understand. And once you do that, you will have half of the way done.
That's amazing. And how you see the post-COVID 2021 business world in Europe?
I see it as an opportunity, really. I believe there are many companies failing, and that's sad, but I don't think they are failing because of COVID. I think COVID was a catalyst for previous tendencies. And companies that were down before, they got this massive shock and they completely failed, but because they had been failing for years. Companies that are strong, that resilient, that are able to adapt are probably now stronger because they were able to adapt, and once we adapt, we find flexibility within ourselves, as we did with COVID. We adapt to a completely different way of doing business. We think, okay, if we were capable of doing this in such a short term, we are capable of doing it for the future and to keep adapting to the market. So I think it's a great opportunity for all businesses in Europe and elsewhere.
That's amazing. I think it's very positive vibes and messages from your side.
Yeah, I believe I was listening a bit of Davos during this week when I had the time, and there were these entrepreneurs, and they kept saying, like 3 or 4 of them, we started in 2008, we started off the midst of a crisis, and because of that, their companies were stronger, and this is no different. Starting up or reinventing yourself in the middle of a crisis, of course, is terribly difficult, but the results are magnificent. Because if you are crisis-proof from one crisis, you will be able to adapt to the next. And if there is one thing we know, is there is going to be a next one. And we don't have to be afraid of that, simply prepare.